Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Lingualit Capital. In this lecture, we will cover the Middle English period. And in my previous lecture, we had a discussion on Old English period, which is also known as the Anglo-Saxon period. I have given the link of those lecture in description box. Kindly go through the link and watch those lecture that will help you in understanding the ages, work, and their writing style. Now, let's talk about the Middle English period. At first, we will discuss the beginning of the Middle English period. So, when we talk about the beginning of this period, then the Old English period ends with the Norman conquest, with the Norman conquest. And in that battle, there was a war between Duke of Normandy and William the Conqueror. Between Duke of Normandy and William the Conqueror. At the end of the battle, the Duke of Normandy became the king. But at the same time, they had to suffer with the hug problems, which was understanding the language. Understanding the language. Because the warriors who were from the Old English period, their right native tongue was Old English. Native tongue was Old English. While the warriors from the Normandy, their native tongue was Norman French. Was Norman French. So they had to suffer in understanding of their language. So period begins known as the Middle English period. As per changes in the period of ages, their writing styles had also been changed. And we can see here the key impacts of Norman conquest. So, at first, the obliged slavery. In Old English period, slavery was on peak. Slavery was on peak. And the main goal of Norman conquest was the abolishing the slavery. Was the abolishing the slavery. And when we talk about the writing style of Old English periods, so grammar was irregular. Grammar was irregular. And the construction were also irregular. The construction were also irregular. In Old English periods, the kings were in section wise, or we can say that unit wise, were section wise or unit wise. And their laws were not better. Their laws were not better. While the laws, land ownership, and system of government are better than Old English period, better than Old English period. And in Middle English period, surnames was also introduced. And after that, when we talk about the Middle English period, so that was the era also popular known as the Age of Chaucer, roughly spans from the Norman conquest in 1066 to the 15th century. It's a fascinating era, deeply represents the evolution of English literature, evolution of English literature through multi-faced aspects that were impacting society that time, impacting society that time. And that was the time when the standard literary language derived from the dialect of the London area. Standard literary language derived from the dialect of the London area and became recognizable as modern English. As modern English. Period to the second half of the 14th century, vernacular literature consisted primarily of religious writings. Religious writings. Vernacular literature consisted. The second half of the 14th century produced the first great age of secular literature. First great age of secular literature. A major portion of this era is named after the renowned poet and author Geoffrey Chaucer, also called the father of English literature, also called the father of English literature, who laid the literary legacy and made the English language stand out. He made the English language stand out. And in this era, also known of these writings that the anonymous Sir Gubbin and the Green Knight. Sir Gubbin and the Green Knight. And Thomas Mallory's Mortady Arthur. Thomas Mallory's Morte The Arthur. While the English Renaissance began with the ascent of House of Tudor, House of Tudor of the English throne in 1485. But broadly, this era can be segregated into three different sub areas. That the period before Chaucer, it consists 1066 to 1300, and the age of Chaucer 1300 to 1400, and after Chaucer, also known as the age of revival, age of revival, or revival of learning, revival of learning. It consists 1400 to 1550, and we can say here the picture of understanding the Middle English era or the age of Chaucer, 11th century to 15th century. So, we will discuss all these periods one by one in this lecture. And the first one is before Chaucer, the Anglo Norman culture. It consists 1066 onwards. So, the Old English or Anglo Saxon era ended with the Norman conquest of the 11th century, where William the Duke of Normandy, William the Duke of Normandy defeated King Harold II at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. At the Battle of Hastings in 1066 through Norman victory, which is I already told you. And William the Conqueror established himself. William the Conqueror established himself as the ruler of England. Ruler of England, leading to the introduction of Roman civilization. Introduction of Roman civilization, and 200 years of French domination. 200 years of French domination. The original English culture wasn't deeply defeated by the Norman way in living. The various ways in which Anglo Norman culture persisted we will describe here. And the first one is the new ruling class. New ruling class. So, imposed with newer ruler and regulations, transforming the country socially and politically, socially and politically. And the French language became the language of the ruling class and the administration, whereas English remained the language of the common people, thus defining the social strata. Defining the social strata. And the second one is the impact of French on English. Impact of French on English was remarkable, leading to even culture and linguistics confusion at time. In spheres like law, government, cuisine, art, and literature, which is we also discuss in the key impact of Norman conquest, and here we will discuss in detail. So, the French loaned numerous words to English such as government, jury, castle, royalty, beauty, color, art, and even poetry. Various French terms were used as titles of nobility, such as seigneur or seer, and prince, duke, comte, vicomte, and baron. And third one is orthography. Is orthography, which means conventional spelling system of any language. Conventional spelling system of any language, as well as phonology, which means way of pronouncing words of English, way of pronouncing words of English, was also influenced by French scribes. Normans preferred Latin alphabets and spellings. Latin alphabets and spellings, which further consolidated French spellings. French spellings spellings. And conventions, convention, phonetic development. In the Middle English era, in the Middle English era, led to the loss of certain Old English sounds. During this era, the society was multilingual. The society was multilingual. Alongside Middle English era, Latin, Latin, Anglo-Norman French, Anglo-Norman French, and Old Norse, Old Norse were also commonly spoken and written languages. Also spoken and written languages. And fourth one is from the religious perspective. Religious perspective. The construction of Grand Norman Cathedral. Construction of Grand Norman Cathedral, such as Canterbury and Durham. Canterbury and Durham symbolized the power and influence of the church in old Norman society. Norman bishops replaced Anglo-Saxon clergy. Norman bishops replaced the Anglo-Saxon clergy, and certain implications were implications were enforced against the English church. Enforced against the English church. And the next one is the Anglo-Norman cuisine. Anglo-Norman cuisine replaced the fusion of French and English culinary tradition. Fusion of French and English culinary traditions. It was also evident through the baking and roasting techniques. Through the baking and roasting techniques. In the dining custom observed then, the aristocratic culture emphasized showcasing wealth, showcasing wealth, hospitality, and social status. Social status. And the next one is over time the Normans intermarried, intermarried with the native Anglo-Saxon population. Native Anglo-Saxon population, leading to the blurring of culture, blurring of culture and ethnic boundaries. Ethnic boundaries. To some extent, this assimilation brought a sense of oneness and collective identity. Oneness and collective identity. So, this is all about the culture of Anglo Norman. And now we will discuss the English nationalism and 100 years of war, which was happened from the 1337 to 1453 in the Middle English period or during the age of Chaucer. So, when we talk about the English nationalism and the 100 years of war, then while the assimilation between the Normans and original Anglo-Saxon was working well, various circumstances led to the gradual awakening of Middle English era nationalism. Linguistic evolution, that is, linguistic evolution, political development, and cultural expression over the years. Cultural expression over the years had started ripping off the indigenous identity of the Anglo-Saxons. England also started receiving external theatres from neighboring kingdom and invasions from external powers. Invasion from external powers. Through these events, a sense of English nationalism was awoken, leading to the Hundred Years of War with France and periodic incursions. France and periodic incursions by the Scots and Wales. Scots and Wales. The Hundred Years of War, a series of conflicts between England and France, commenced when King Edward III of England disputed with Philip VI of France over feudal rights regarding over feudal rights regarding Gascony and trade relations with the Low Countries. The battle marks one of the most important happening in history. Most important happening in history, especially because it spanned for the over a country from the 14th to 15th century, and the war's prolonged and bitter nature was unexpected, but it stemmed from the fundamental struggle of supremacy. Complicated issues, including Middle English period language, territorial claims in France, disputes over the section to the French throne, legal conflicts, commercial competition, and a desire for plunder, all contributed to its intense and duration. At the length, various treaties like Treaty of Pequin, like Treaty of Pequin in 1475 were were signed, and political developments concerning the throne of France were made to announce peace and harmony between England and France. Peace and harmony between England and France. However, recurrent conflicts and tensions between two nations persisted for years to come. Next incident that was happened in Middle English period is Black Death. The Black Death, one of the deadliest pandemic in human society. That is one of the deadliest pandemic in human society history. Struck Europe. Struck Europe in 1346 and spent broadly till 1353. It caused widespread devastation, and gigantic loss of life. Gigantic loss of life. It is believed that the pandemic originated in Central Asia. From there, the disease spread speedily along trade routes, reaching Europe in 1347. And the Middle English era estimated suggest that the Black Death killed about one third of Europe's population. One third of Europe's population, leading to upheaval, economic upheaval, social dislocation, social dislocation, and turmoil. Religious turmoil. The plague's consequences endured for generations, shaping the course of European history and leaving a on the collective scar on the collective memory of humanity. Yeah. After that, the peasants' revolt. It was happened in 1381. Serves as a as a landmark, representing a bold challenge to feudal authority. Bold challenge to feudal authority by England's peasants. Given the war and pandemic together, war and pandemic together, peasants were the ones who faced a lot of adversity on financial, occupational, and social fronts. Social fronts. The peasants and communers rose against their feudal overlords and openly opposed the injustice. Injustice. They were imposing on the working class. They were imposing on the working class. And the leading figure of the revolt were the Wyatt Taylor and John Wall. After that, the War of the Roses that was happened in 1455 to 1485 after the age of Chaucer. So, in the 15th century, a series of dynastic conflicts took England over, called the Wars of Roses. There were bitter rivalries between the House of Lancaster and the House of York, who aimed to have authority, who aimed to have authority over the governance and ownership. The Lancasterians identified themselves with the red rose, and the Yorkists used the white rose to represent themselves. These wars were recognized by a series of battles that political intrigues, political intrigues and alliances, shifting alliances. Ultimately, the conflict ended with the Battle of Bosworth Field. Ended with the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, where Henry Tudor, representing the Lancasterian Henry Tudor, representing the Lancasterian, claim defeated Richard III. Defeated Richard III, the last Yorkist king. Is the last Yorkist king. This victory led to the establishment of the Tudor dynasty. Establishment of the Tudor dynasty and marked the end of the War of the Roses. End of the War of the Roses. A new era of stability under the rule of Henry VII was positioned. After that, in 1440, that time, one of the most important events happened, that the Inventing of the printing press. Yeah. Invented by John John Gutenberg. In the mid 15th century, played a pivotal role in the Middle English era. It revolutionized the dissemination of knowledge among the masses and enabled the the speed of education beyond the aristocrats to the commoners. Before the invention of the printing press, books were painstakingly copied by hand, limiting access to literature and religious texts. With the printing press, mass production of books became possible, leading to greater availability of literature, including vernacular works such as that of Geoffrey Chaucer and the printing editions of English classics by William Caxton. English classics by William Caxton. And one of the most significant publications of the age was the printing press of the Bible in English. Bible in English, notably by the William Tyndale. By the William Tyndale. And it's a religious transformation. It's a religious transformation. So now we can see here these are the steps of ruling society in Middle English period. First one is royal family, under them the major nobility, under them the minor nobility, under them the freemen, and in the last serfs. And after that, we will talk about some important characteristics of Middle English period. So first one is linguistics development. So the period began with Norman French as the prestige language of the court, but Middle English gradually gained legitimacy, becoming a standard literary language. Becoming standard literary language by the late 14th century. Late 14th century. Heavily influenced by French and Latin vocabulary. French and Latin vocabulary. After that, emphasis on oral quality. Since most of the population was illiterate. Literature was often meant to be heard, not read. Genres like romance and narrative poems were designed for memorization and public recitation. For memorization and public recitation. After that, anonymity. So many early works were credited and circulated anonymously, and the focus was on the shared story, and its moral rather than the identity of the author. Identity of the author. After that, chivalry and courtly love. So this period is defined by the rise of chivalric literature. Rise of chivalry literature. A continental style that focused on the heroic deeds of knights. Heroic deeds of knights. The subgenre of courtly love explored the romantic code, explored the romantic code between a knight and highborn lady. After that, didactic and allegorical themes. So, themes reflecting the religious fervor of the time. Much literature was intended to teach a moral lesson. Teach a moral lesson. Allegory was on common device. Allegory was a common device representing abstract qualities like virtue and vice as characters. After that, the rise of drama. So the religious drama flourished in the form of mystery play. In the form of mystery plays, which dramatized biblical stories, and morality plays, which presented allegorical tales, teaching moral lessons. After that, the impact of the printing press, which is I already discussed in this lecture. So These all are the important characteristics the Middle English period. And now we will discuss the author and notable works of Middle English era. And in this series, first we will talk about Geoffrey Chaucer. So when we talk about the Geoffrey Chaucer, so the post of poet laureate was first started in the Middle English period during the age of Chaucer. And Chaucer is also known to be the first court poet. First court poet and poet laureate of England. Poet laureate of England. And the term heroic couplet was first introduced by Geoffrey Chaucer. Heroic couplet was first introduced by Geoffrey Chaucer. In his work, The Legend of Good Women, The Legend of Good Women, the heroic couplet rhyme scheme was AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF. And one more important fact we should know that the John Dryden, John Dryden and Alexander Pope were crucial in perfecting and popularizing the heroic couplet in the late 17th and early 18th century. And Geoffrey Chaucer, also the first one who used rhyme royal, is also first one who used rhyme royal. In his work, The Troilus and Cresside, rhyme royal stanza, also known as the Chaucerian stanza, and which is written in 7 lines with iambic pentameter. And the rhyming scheme is AB AB BCC. And the first English poem of Middle English age is known to be the Canterbury Tales, which express the satirical and detailed gallery of the 14th century. and it's a collection of story which is told by a group of pilgrims. And next one is William Langland, credited with writing Piers Plowman, a long allegorical drama vision poem. Long allegorical drama vision poem, written in unrhymed alliterative verse. Unrhymed alliterative verse. It's presented a moral and political critique. Moral and political critique of the English society and corruption within the church. Corruption within the church. Next one is the Peril poet, author of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, an Arthurian romance. Arthurian romance. Written in an archaic alliterative style. Archaic alliterative style. The poem explores theme of honor and chivalry through Sir Gawain's quest. Next one is John Gower. He was a friend and contemporary of Chaucer. He is remembered for his long poem Confessio Amantis, which explores theme of courtly and Christian love. Theme of courtly and Christian love. Next one is Julian of Norwich, an important mystic and the first woman known to have written a book in English. Written a book in English. Her revelations of divine love recorded her theological vision. Theological vision. And one more important fact about metaphysical period, that same time in Italy, culture revolution began when we see the Renaissance in Florence of Italy, and at that time the Christian poetry had two themes, that Jesus' life, which means about the life of church, and crucified, which means cross. And after that, the 15th century and beyond. So, after Chaucer's death, the 15th century, sometimes called the Barren Age, in comparison of Chaucer's influence, produced notable works that preserved and built upon Middle English tradition. That Thomas Mallory's. Here are first one is Thomas Mallory, compiler of Le Morte d'Arthur, which brings together French and English, French and English, Arthurian legends into a cohesive major prose work. Major prose work. It was one of the first books printed by William Caxton. First book printed by William Caxton in 1485. And next one is Marjorie Camp. So the author of the book of Marjorie Camp, known to be the first autobiography, it is considered to be the first autobiography written in English. It details her spiritual vision travels. Spiritual vision travels. Visions travels. And religious life. Religious life. And here the Middle English period ends and the Renaissance begins with the 16th century. So this is all about the Middle English period, and I hope you all would have understand the Middle English period. So thanks for watching this video. Thank you so much.